Hey, what's up? It's John with Be Superfly. Hope you're doing well. Wanted to make a quick tutorial and just look at the code that I just made for this client site that we're working on. For those of you that don't know, I co-own the agency Artillery, and it's a 100% Divi shop. And then I also co-own BeSuperfly.com, which sells Divi themes and plugins and stuff like that. So this one was fun because we had this search self-help. It's a legal aid website, and we have the search self-help library here, and then with these categories already underneath. And so the challenge was, how do we, get all these buttons here in a row, and then how do I adjust for different screen sizes to get them to be 3 by 3, then 2 by 2, and then 1 by 1 there. Just that looks really nice. All right, so let's hop in here. So the first thing that I did was in my section, I gave it an ID of self-help library, which we'll use in the CSS. You'll see that I use that in the CSS here in a little bit. And then I made all of these buttons, and they were, let me go ahead and take away this self-help. You can see that they were all stacked like that originally. And so then what I did was grab the code here. So then I went into the self-help library, into my buttons, and inline blocked them in margin right. Let me show you what that does. So a lot of folks, the Divi wraps the button module in a wrapper. So you'll see, like this first one here, custody. It's first wrapped in it's in a div wrapper here, and then you go inside of this, and that's where your ETPB button is at. So by default, these are normally, let me go ahead and turn this off. By default, the button usually goes all the way across. You can see that when I highlight over it, the blue thing goes all the way across. And that's why it's hard to have them be side by side, because normally they're just, you don't have them side by side. So to do that, you do display inline block here, and that'll get them all side by side. Because again, this CSS code here is saying go into the self-help library ID, which is our entire section here, and go find any button wrappers that are in there. In this example, there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 button wrappers in here. Go do all 6 of those, and change the display to inline block, and then we'll also add the margin of 10 pixels. And so then once I kind of knew where, let me go back here. Once I kind of knew where that would look good, that's when I decided how wide to make this row. So 1058. Before it was like this, and that doesn't look great. But that's what I first had, and then I said, okay, what value do I need to put into this row's max width here to make it so that everything's right in line on the edge here with my 10 pixels of margin in between, and that 1058 ended up being the number. Okay, so that's how we got to this point where they're all just chilling here. I'll go over the code once more. So go in the self-help library section, go to the wrappers, inline block them, which lines them up, then do a margin right of 10 pixels. Except for the last one, though. We don't want the last one to have 10 pixels because then that would break our design. So then I went in and inspected the last button. And I could have added classes to all these buttons, but, and I did. Here's an ID of 6. But you got to remember, though, when I added the class on the button in Divi, let me show you. This is why it's a little tricky working with buttons. So this last button here, I thought, I'll just give it an ID of 6. That way I can target it here and have it not add the margin. Well, the margin's not being added to the link here. It's being added to the wrapper. And when you put the 6 ID on the button, it's adding it inside the wrapper. It's not actually adding it to the wrapper out here. So that's why I had to go with, and fortunately each wrapper that Divi makes has a number. So button 2 wrapper, button 3, 4, 5. So that's why I have this button 6 wrapper, and that's why I have this right here. So go on the self-help library ID, find the wrappers of the buttons, add 10 pixels. 6th wrapper, the 6th button, don't add that. Boom. And that takes care of desktop. And then, but eventually, then we get right in. You know, at some point, this isn't going to work. It's going to break, and so that's when you want to make more of a grid out of them. I just liked how this looked on most desktops, and then when it does break down to the grid, I'm imagining this is most people's tablet. I don't mind that each button is this exact same width. Here they're not. They're different widths depending on how many words are in there. I prefer that, but I like how this stacks. So let's look at that one. All right, so up here, this was all our desktop code. Now let's work on the tablet code. So I'm saying, hey, at 1325, make each button wrapper, make them all 32.6% and margin right of 1%. So basically, it's just some trial and error to get these numbers exactly where you need them to be. So let me just go in here and inspect, and we'll mess around with some of these numbers. So remember, they're all wrappers here. There we go. So yeah, if I just make these widths like 32.5, let's say, you can see it still works, but there's a little bit, it's not lining up quite right there. So you can just play around with those numbers to get what you need to get there. But go into the self-help library, get all the button module wrappers. They're already side by side. Let's make them all the same width, and let's give them all a margin right of 1%. Okay, cool. And so, and then I'm saying, hey, go into the actual buttons, make them 100% width, and center the text. I think, let me see what happens if I take that off. Yeah, see, if I take that off, they're just going to take as much space as they can with just the one word in there. So I center them, and if I take this off, all the text was left align. So I just changed that to center here. And you could probably do that in the module, but I was in here already. Might as well just do it. And then here I'm adding some margin bottom to the first 3 buttons here. So the first 3 buttons are going to have like, here we go. Here's the first one. If I get rid of this margin bottom. So this code right here, go into the self-help library, find button 1, 2, and 3, add margin bottom of 10 pixels. That's what's doing this right here. And then we're saying on the 3rd wrapper and on the 6th wrapper, don't have any margin right. And actually, I could have just done this. I could have just, instead of having the same rule exactly twice, I could have just put a comma here and said, 3 and 6, no margin right. All right, cool. And that's what gets us to this point where we have a grid of 3 buttons across, but then down here, it gets to 2 buttons across, which is at 980, which is Divi's default tablet mode, right? And so then the code it's very similar to what we did above. It's saying, hey, now go into the self-help library, find the wrappers, make them all 49.25 with a margin right of 1.5% and a margin bottom of 10 pixels. And then go into, now it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Go into buttons 2, 4, and 6 and get rid of the margin right. So that way there's no margin right on these 3 buttons on the right here. Because these buttons are 2, 4, and 6, as you'll see. So there's button 2, 4, 6. Now, I guess technically, if I really cared, like these last 2 buttons here, 5 and 6 here, they have margin bottom, and I could get rid of that because I don't necessarily need that, but I don't mind it. It's fine. It's okay. I can live with it. But that would be easy to achieve. Okay, and then lastly, once it hits 600, it all goes down to just single buttons. And so there we're saying, hey, at 600, go into the self-help library, make all the wrappers 100%, get rid of the margin right, have all of them have margin bottom with 10 pixels. And again, that last one, I necessarily don't need the margin bottom of 10. So, and you know what? Let me go ahead and get rid of that margin bottom then, and kind of show you how I would do it. And so here I am. Let me go up here to here, right, 1325, where it first changes from all being in one row to stacked. Okay, so in this example, we're adding margin bottom. Oh, I did. I took it off that one. Oh, yeah. In the first example, you'll see that I just added margin bottom to the top 3 buttons. And these bottom 3, they don't have margin bottom. And margin is the orange color that shows up here. So there's some margin right and bottom there. Bottom 3 doesn't have any. So I didn't add any, and then I got lazy. That's what happened, is I only added them on buttons 1, 2, and 3 here. And then we got to 980. And I was like, just who cares? So here we have them on all of them, but you'll see button 5 and 6, I don't want them on there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and just grab this first one here, this button 2 wrapper. I'm going to go down here and change that to button 5. And then a comma. And then button 6. And an open curly thing and say margin bottom 0. Cool. Now I'm going to go in and put that in my theme options here. Well, let me just make sure I'm just doing this part here, because I copied out just this portion of theme options, so I need to make sure I'm not changing anything else. There we go. Okay, that works. So now I'll hop over. And we can't really tell because it's only 10 pixels, but if I go and inspect it, now you'll see that these bottom 2 do not have the orange on the bottom. So they don't have the margin bottom. You can see right here, margin bottom 0. If I take that off, it shows up. And so then let's go down to, yeah, even here it still doesn't have it. And then at 600 pixels, it goes down to single. And that bottom one probably has it. It does. So basically, I got to do the same thing right here and get rid of just on the 6th one. So I'm going to get rid of this 5th one. Because here I'm saying, hey, go to all the buttons and add margin bottom to all of them. And now I'm going to say, hey, that 6th button, take it off. And I just need to, I'm just going to copy this one rule here and paste it into my... Oh, wow, that's confusing. There we go. Right there. Great. Save that. Pull this back in. I haven't refreshed yet, so it should still be on there, the margin bottom. There it is, the orange. I'm going to refresh the page, and it's going to be gone. There we go. Now it's not there. All right, so there's a much easier way to do this, and that would be to go check out our Superfly Button Module. It's a side-by-side. It gives you 2 different things that Divi's Button Module does not. Number 1, it gives you side-by-side capabilities, super easy. Well, it gives you several things. It gives you a cool subtitle that you can put here. It gives you a nice icon that always hangs out to the right or left of the button, which I really like, instead of it instead of it hugging in. And then it does gradient buttons. Now keep in mind the one color here is shared, and so it's really 3 colors, and you're just shifting between them. But yeah, that would have been nice to use. I didn't have that yet when I built this one, so be sure to check that out. There's a little tutorial here on how to use it. And then also, if you like this tutorial and you want to know more about CSS with Divi, check out our CSS for Divi, cssfordivi.com. It's also on our store, though, under training. It's a course that you can buy. Check out the course outline. Lots of projects in here. There's even a sample project. For every project, you get the code as well. So here's a 15-minute tutorial on how to swap out Divi's default play icon with this play video graphic PNG file instead with some color overlay. If I hit view code pen, you can see this is where you can grab all the CSS code for this certain one. And then let's check out the demo here. So normally, so we're just controlling the overlay color on hover, and then we're swapping out the play icon for this play graphic. So check out CSS for Divi if you want to learn more CSS. And then here's where I could have used this Superfly Button Module to have my 6 buttons in a row here, and then you can say on tablet, have them two columns of buttons, and then maybe on mobile have 1 column of buttons. So that's what I could have done instead of having to write all this code here. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed this one, and be sure to check out bsuperfly.com for the Superfly button, the CSS for Divi course, and lots of other themes and plugins. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial, and cheers, y'all. We'll talk soon. All right.